Her body burned hot like lava inside a volcano. The only one who could save her now was the man before her eyes. She clung to his icy, marble-like skin, her desperation to survive leaving her with no other choice but to surrender herself. After the pain ended, pleasure began to fly, like fireworks exploding inside her mind, making her feel as though she was in the middle of a sea of fire. Drifting in and out, there was no escape. Hey, wake up. The air conditioning is cold here. Don't sleep or you'll catch a cold. The weight on her shoulder woke Ningxi, her eyes opening disorientedly to see the nurse standing before her. She felt slightly embarrassed and her small face blushed red. She could not avoid the nurse's gaze. Damn, it happened so long ago already. Flashes of that night when she had gotten drunk and fooled around with Su Yan would often appear in her dreams. Because she had consumed too much alcohol, she couldn't remember much of what had transpired that night. She didn't know how she could face Brother Yan. The nurse saw that she was awake and passed the paper in her hand to her. You forgot to take your pregnancy report with you. Dr. Zhang would have wanted you to come back again next week if you had left it here. Ningxi received the report with a sweet smile and put it away safely in her purse. Su Yan had been studying abroad and would return today. When Ningxi thought about meeting him tonight, she couldn't help but feel nervous. Because Su Yan had gone to a very remote place, she hadn't been able to contact him until their child had become 7 months old. Thinking of the shock Su Yan had received from knowing about her pregnancy, Ningxi was tense. Perhaps her pregnancy was making her rather sensitive and on edge? Ningxi felt that Su Yan was not as happy about the news as she was. The doctors had reassured her that with their first child, men would always appear indifferent and in denial at first. However, the matter of getting married, she couldn't possibly mention it to him first, right? When she left the hospital, the sky was clear and the sun was scorching. Supporting her hip with one hand, Ningxi was about to call for a taxi, when suddenly a flashy red sports car sped towards her. Ningxi's heart skipped a beat as she immediately retreated backward. The sound of brakes hurt her ears as the red sports car stopped, brushing the edges of her clothes. Ningxi was so scared, her heart almost stopped beating, and she could barely stand straight. Opening the door in a tight-fitting red dress which revealed a lot of cleavage, Ningxuelua stepped out of the car. Ningxuelua, are you crazy? Looking at her, Ningxuelua laughed with deep meaning. Crossing her arms, she sauntered over to stand in front of Ningxi. In her high heels, she looked down arrogantly at big-bellied Ningxi. What? Are you scared I'll crash into you and kill the bastard inside your stomach? Ningxi immediately protected her belly and took a few more steps backward while worriedly observing her. Ningxuelua, don't cross the line. She always knew that Ningxuelua was hostile towards her, but Ningxi had never thought she could say such poisonous things. I crossed the line. I should say you crossed the line. Getting drunk and then getting pregnant with a stranger's child. And yet you still want Su Yan to play the dad. Ningxi, do you still have any face left? Ningxi froze and asked, What did you say? Do you really believe the person you slept with that night was Su Yan? Ningxuelua laughed hysterically. You always say you grew up with Su Yan, that you're childhood sweethearts. Yet you don't even know what his body is like? Ningxi's face got paler and whiter with every word she said. Standing here on such a blistering hot day, her whole body felt ice cold. That's right, that man that night. She had thought that perhaps because of puberty, his body was bulkier than she had originally imagined. But with Ningxuelua's reminder, she now suddenly recalled that besides his build, nothing else about that man resembled Su Yan. I'll tell you the truth right now. That night you drank wine which I spiked. You were so lustful and unsatisfied that I found 2 good men for you. Who knew that you wouldn't appreciate my kindness? You even barged into a stranger's room and took advantage of that man.
Ning pueloo sai tiskusteli.
Brother Yan is far too gentle and kind for his own good, because when you woke up, he was afraid you wouldn't be able to accept the truth, so he told you that it was him that night. Ningxi had started trembling as she heard this. She finally couldn't hold it in any longer and grabbed Ningxuelua by her arm. Why do you treat me this way? Why? Haven't you screwed me over enough? Ningxuelua furrowed her brow, and just as she was about to push Ningxi away, she noticed Su Yan approaching them behind Ningxi. Her voice immediately softened and her expression turned pitiful. Older sister, I know I'm wrong. If you want to hit or yell, do it to me. Please don't blame Brother Yan. Ningxi paused, and in the next second, Ningxuelua fell to the ground as if Ningxi had pushed her.
Ningxi.
What are you? Someone said accusingly behind her. Ningxi turned around and saw an unfriendly-looking Su Yan. Su Yan brushed past her and helped Ningxuelua up. Xuelua, are you all right? Ningxuelua pressed nearly her entire body against Su Yan. Brother Yan, I didn't mean it. I really know I'm wrong. This only happened because I wronged older sister. That's enough. Don't blame yourself. No matter what happens, you have me. Su Yan patted her shoulder and helped her into the car. I'll explain everything to Ningxi. Ningxi's mind was blank as she watched Su Yan stride towards her and open his mouth. He spoke for a long time. He spoke of the past and their happy childhood. He spoke of the struggle he went through when he fell in love with Ningxuel. He spoke of his fury and anger when he found out Ningxuelua had schemed against Ningxi. He spoke of the fright and regret he felt when he found out about Ningxi's pregnancy. He spoke about how he accepted Ningxuelua's apology. In the end he said, Ningxi, I'm sorry. I can't marry you. Not because of that night nor because of the child that I don't want, but because I cannot wrong Xuelua and because I can't lie to myself about my feelings. He and Ningxuelua had been traveling outside the country in the past few months, and having been with her morning and night, it was harder to separate from her now more than ever. Although he had initially wanted to ease Ningxi's pain by pretending that he did indeed have intercourse with her, in his heart, he had already chosen Ningxuelua. That was why after finding out that Ningxi was pregnant, he couldn't stop himself from immediately going to the Ning family and explaining everything to the second master. Despite this, he had not told the truth to Ningxi herself. You mean, Su Yan, from the start you knew that it was Ningxuelua who drugged me and ruined my innocence? Just because you wanted to protect her, you told me the person that night was you. Ningxi finally found her voice, but could only look numbly at Su Yan. Ningxi, Xuelua didn't mean it. She's still young, so she might be impulsive. Then what about me? Ningxi looked up at Su Yan hopelessly. Did you never once consider what it would be like for me? Su Yan did not speak, and there was a long moment of silence before he reached out for Ningxi's hand. The sun is too hot. Let's return home. Don't touch me. Ningxi immediately slapped his hand away and laughed aloud. Ningxi felt that her whole life until now had been a joke. For Su Yan, she had worked hard to get into B University to come to the city where he lived. For Su Yan, she had abandoned her dream to become an actress. So that their family statuses would match, she had pushed aside her adoptive parents in order to return to the Ning family, and she had stupidly tried to please those so-called upper-class families. And as a result of all her efforts, she only received, I cannot wrong Xuelua. Ningxuelua had not only stolen her identity and her birth parents, but today, she had even stolen the person she loved most. Ningxuelua was young, but even so, how could she be forgiven? If she really did forgive her, then who could she blame for her life's misfortune? She didn't even know who the man from that night was. Ningxi covered her face, her body quivering, for she had reached the limit of her despair. Su Yan watched as Ningxi mindlessly started to cross the road, and was about to chase after her when from behind, Ningxuelua tugged on his sleeve. Brother Yan, where are you going? In Su Yan's moment of hesitation there was a loud bang. Ningxi was thrown back on the road and she hit the ground hard. Help! Help! A pregnant lady has been hit. In the piercing light, Ningxi could make out two silhouettes and faces which made her want to throw up. She felt her stomach cramp, and she slowly started to lose consciousness from the intense pain. She blinked, and the blood trickling down her forehead flowed into her eyes. She entered a world of darkness. 5 years later, in Eden Wine Bar in a corridor on the top floor, Ningxi had accompanied the investors in drinking all night. She was experiencing a splitting headache and was trying to find a quiet place to refresh herself. She didn't think that Changli would follow her out, and she could only prepare herself mentally to deal with her. "Sister Chang, do you have something to say?" "Ningxi, let me ask you. Did you apply to audition for the female lead in the world?" "Yes, and you cannot go tomorrow." Even though Changli was Ningxi's manager, here she was advising her not to go to an audition for such a huge role in the entertainment industry. Ningxi was unsurprised at her words and merely raised an eyebrow as she asked, "Reason? First of all, you kept quiet about this and did not tell me, yet you still dare to ask me for a reason? Not to mention, don't you know the company has already arranged for Ningxuelua to audition for the role? If I audition for the role, that doesn't clash with the company's arrangements." Ningxi smiled at her. "Did Ningxuelua ask you to speak to me about this? Is she scared a little unknown rookie like me might actually steal her role? Do you even have the talent to compete with her for roles? You're insane to even talk about such an impossible dream. Let me tell you now, don't waste your effort. The Ning family invested 30 million yuan into this drama, so the role will definitely go to Ningxuelua. Is that so? Then why do you need to be so nervous? You're my artiste. You have to listen to my arrangements for you," Changli said as a matter of course. "Oh, so Sister Chang, you do know I am an artiste under you. Ningxi, I don't have time to waste with you. Since you don't accept my kindness and want things the hard way, don't blame me for being merciless." As soon as she said the words, Ningxi felt a force hit her, and caught off guard, she was pushed into the bar's storeroom, her cell phone also stolen away. Bang! The door slammed shut. The footsteps outside the door gradually became quieter as they went further away. Knowing that shouting would be useless, Ningxi leaned against the door and slid down to sit on the floor without a word. When Ningxi had just joined the company, Ningxuelua still knew how to restrain herself, and had ordered Changli to arrange various villain roles for her. Lately, it was becoming too much that even such underhanded tricks like locking her in a storeroom were being used. If she couldn't get the role she auditioned for this time, she definitely needed to find a way to leave Starlight Entertainment. As she pondered this, she suddenly heard a small sound. "Don't tell me there's a rat?" Ningxi glanced in the direction the sound had come from, and was shocked. Behind a stack of boxes, she could see a little boy. The kid appeared to be around 4 to 5 years old, with features like finely carved jade, and white and soft like a small bun. He was hiding in the corner shivering, his black eyes full of wariness and alarm. Why is there a kid in this bar storeroom? No way some customer could be preposterous enough to bring a child to a bar, right? Hey, little bun, who are you? How did you get in here? Did you sneak in? Did someone lock you in here? Do you eat candy? After asking for what felt like half a day, the child still did not speak, and his trembling only became worse like frightened prey. Ningxi stopped talking. This didn't have anything to do with her anyway. Thus, an adult and a child each took a corner of their own as they continued to coexist idly. At this time, the ceiling light started to flicker, and then went out. In the darkness, Ningxi could hear a chattering sound. After carefully analyzing the sound, she realized it was a noise made by the chattering of teeth. Ningxi couldn't help but laugh, and faced the little bun. "Are you afraid of the dark?" The chattering stopped for a second, and then began even louder than before. Oh, how could he be such a coward? Ningxi patted her but as she got up and walked towards the kid. The little bun was so scared of Ningxi. His entire face went pale with fright. Meanwhile, she sat down next to the little bun and didn't do anything except close her eyes to sleep. All night, Changli had dragged her around to drink with people. It would have been even more surprising if her head wasn't hurting. After waking up from a short nap, Ningxi felt that her leg was warm. She looked down to see the little bun clinging to her, clutching the hem of what she was wearing. Ningxi couldn't help but laugh. When she had still been living in the countryside, she had raised a cat. It had been especially cowardly and was deeply afraid of people. The moment it saw anyone, the cat would run. However, if you didn't pay the cat any attention, it would slowly lower its guard after understanding you didn't mean it any harm, and the cat would then start to cling to you, and even climb onto your knee to sleep. The little bun noticed her gaze and his small face went red with embarrassment, but he no longer showed any fear like before, and instead was filled with curiosity. He really resembled that cat, so much so that even his facial expression was the same. Nibi. Ningxi curled her lips and felt her hand itching until she couldn't restrain herself, and tousled the little boy's hair. When she touched him, she frowned. Why was his forehead so hot? Do you have a fever? Chongli was going to lock her up in here at least until tomorrow after the audition was over, and maybe even longer after that. If this child were to continue burning with fever, it could prove to be quite fatal. In her moment of panic, she realized something wasn't right. The light in the storeroom had obviously died earlier, so why was there still light inside this place? Lifting her head, she realized there was a very small skylight overhead which was letting light in. Searching the storeroom, Ningxi found a ladder, which she placed beneath the window. Little bun, come here. I'll help you escape. The little guy showed a reaction for the first time. He shook his little head and seemed determined not to leave. Looking at him, Ningxi understood what he meant and smiled while pinching his cheeks. Why do you speak of loyalty? Do you want to stay and suffer with me? Go up, the window's too small for me, so I can't leave with you. But you can head out and find someone to come save me. Seeing the kid's hesitation, Ningxi picked him up directly and put him on the ladder. Quick, be a man. Don't waver. I'll be down here guarding you. After finally delivering the child safely outside, Ningxi went down the ladder, but started to feel dizzy. In that moment of sudden lightheadedness, she slipped and fell. Outside the window, the little bun's originally expressionless face contorted in terror as he witnessed the scene. Ningxi forced a word out. Leave! Under the starlight, her face was pale and fragile, but it did not overshadow her ethereal beauty. Her eyes, especially, held a sparkling and spirited elegance that mirrored an ocean brimming with a constellation of stars. She was no longer the same country bumpkin and ugly duckling from the past. However, what use was that?
Ning tsismilet bitterli.
She hadn't gotten her revenge yet, and here she was about to die from a fall. At least before dying, she had accomplished a good deed. She had saved the little bun. If her child had not died that year, he would probably have been the same age. 5 years ago, after that car accident, the Ning family, ashamed of her, had sent her to M country, to a miscellaneous university for profligate second-generation rich kids. They had left her to fend for herself. She had withdrawn from that school to apply for Nanjia University, where she went crazy learning whatever she could, because she wanted to defeat Ningxuola, to reclaim all of what should have been hers. Most importantly, acting was her ultimate dream. After returning to the country, she had used her looks and talent to gain Chongli's attention. She then successfully entered one of the biggest entertainment companies, Starlight Entertainment. Originally, the path under Starlight should have been vast with possibilities. But then Ningxuola also entered the company, and then bribed Chongli to constantly suppress Ningxi. Meanwhile, inside the guest room of the Eden Wine Bar, the atmosphere was very tense. The bar owner, manager, security, and all related staff trembled together in a huddle, as if they were all about to face imminent disaster. This was all because the Lu Corporation's young heir, Lu Tingxiao's precious son, had gone missing in their bar. Sitting on the sofa, Lu Tingxiao's expression was very cold. He was like an ice sculpture, without the slightest trace of emotion, but he exuded such tremendous pressure that everyone standing before him felt their legs shake, and their sweat fall like rain. No one dared to make a sound. At his feet, a young man cried while wiping his snot and tears. "Brother, I'm sorry, this is all my fault. I shouldn't have brought little treasure to a bar. If anything happens to him, I wouldn't be able to live with myself anymore." After he stopped talking, a kick flew at his chest. The sound of bone crunching caused goosebumps. Everyone who was present trembled a bit. Lu Jingli clutched his chest and coughed, before climbing back up to resume groveling. Right now, his parents were on vacation outside the country, and did not know that little treasure was missing. If they knew, they wouldn't do something so simple as a kick like his brother. They would carve him alive. Lu Jingli was feeling hopeless and pathetic, when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Standing the closest to the door, the bar owner opened it, and found it odd when he saw no one. But then he lowered his head and was stunned. Young master. Little treasure? My God. Little treasure. My darling. Where have you been? Lu Jingli rolled himself up and hugged him tightly. He was so emotional. He cried bitterly while his snot ran freely. Everyone in the room was relieved and felt as though they'd survived a disaster. Lu Tingxiao walked a few steps towards the door. He grabbed Lu Jingli by the collar and threw him aside. He then knelt down to speak to his son. What is it? Finally, having escaped his second uncle's monstrous grip, little treasure seized Lu Tingxiao's hand and hurriedly pulled him forward. Lu Tingxiao drew closer to his son and could smell not only the scent of wine, but also a faint fragrance. It wasn't heavy like perfume, but more like flowers growing out of a glacier, emitting a light and cool scent. It gave him a sense of vague familiarity, but also a small dose of fear. Noticing that Lu Tingxiao was not moving, little treasure pointed in a direction with his small finger with an extremely worried expression. Lu Tingxiao picked his son up in his arms and started in the direction his son wanted him to go. Behind him, the remaining people looked at each other helplessly before following. 5 minutes later, the group was standing before the door to the bar's storeroom on the top floor. Little treasure twisted his body to get down from his father's arms and started banging anxiously on the storeroom door. What is it, little treasure? What's in there? Lu Jingli's forehead was covered in sweat. Without expression, Lu Tingxiao ordered, "Open the door." Yes, yes, yes. The bar owner repeatedly nodded his head, then turned around to look at the female manager beside him. Manager Yi, why are you still just standing around? Open the door quickly. Where are the keys? Open the door? The female manager went rigid. What bad luck. That woman Ning, she was still in there. She had promised Chongli that she would lock her up in there at least until the audition was over. However, with the Lu family's 2 masters and her boss waiting, she couldn't say no. She could only tremble as she took out the keys to open the door. Once the door was opened, everyone saw a woman lying on the floor unconscious. What is this? Why is there a woman in here? The owner flew into a rage. I don't know. I checked this area earlier and there wasn't anybody here. The female manager hid her guilt as she defended herself. Quick! Let's just save her first and then discuss it. Just then someone ran over to Ningxi. Little treasure threw himself onto Ningxi, his expression fierce, not letting anyone approach her. President Lu, this? The bar owner felt helpless. He didn't understand at all how this situation had come about. Lu Tingxiao glanced coldly at the female manager's guilty expression, then looked at the ladder, which was under the skylight in the ceiling, big enough to allow a child through. He could roughly deduce what had happened here. He waved his hand to dismiss everyone, then walked over and directly picked the woman up in his arms. In his embrace, the soft, cool scent from before returned, and was even more distinct. Seeing Lu Tingxiao pick her up, little treasure did not stop him, but his expression showed his unwillingness. It appeared as though he was saying that if he wasn't so small, he'd pick her up himself. In the First People's Republic Hospital in B City, by the time Ningxi woke up, it was already the next morning. When she opened her eyes, she could see a man sitting on a chair by the window. His long legs were casually crossed. He wore a slim-fitting tailored suit which emphasized his broad shoulders and slender waist. His white shirt was buttoned all the way up to the collar. He was bathed in sunlight, but his body appeared to be shrouded in an ancient frost. His cool and calm demeanor was like that of an olden-day emperor. The man noticed her observing him, and directed a gaze as deep as the ocean at her. His chilling stare seemed to pierce through her. The look he gave her felt intrusive, like a sharp surgery knife dissecting her piece by piece. It made her bones shudder. Ningxi decided to join the battle, unwilling to lose to this stranger and his uncomfortable gaze. She asked impatiently, "Mister, if I may ask, how did I end up here? Did you see a little boy? He's 4 to 5 years old, doesn't like to speak, appears white and soft but also a bit dull." The man raised an eyebrow at her description, then glanced to her right, his voice as cold as his appearance. "Are you talking about little treasure?" Ningxi quickly followed his line of sight and saw a white, soft little bun lying asleep on the small bed by her side. "Right, that's him. His name is Little Treasure." Ningxi let out a sigh of relief and reached over to feel Little Treasure's forehead. His fever had already subsided. Before, when she had helped the child escape, she had regretted it a bit. He was just a child, and with a fever in such a rough place like that wine bar, what would she have done if something had happened to him? Ningxi then turned around to face the ice statue. "You are this child's?" As soon as these words left her mouth, Ningxi realized she didn't even need to ask. The man and the child seemed to have come from the same mold. It was apparent that they were father and son. Still, the ice statue replied, "Father. Hi beautiful, you're awake. I'm Little Treasure's second uncle." Abruptly, a large face rushed over towards her, causing her to retreat backward until she saw the man's face and stopped. Lu Jingli. He was the Lu Corporation's second prince, Glory World Entertainment's boss, but leaving his stunning looks and titles aside, he was a playboy. He had made more scandalous appearances in the media than many celebrities and artistes. She could never mistake his face. If the ice statue was Little Treasure's father, and Lu Jingli was Little Treasure's second uncle, then wouldn't the ice statue be Lu Jingli's older brother, Lu Tingxiao? Lu Tingxiao was Jing City's famous god of fortune. His existence was like a king sans a crown. Who would have thought the child she had saved was the mysterious illegitimate son of Lu Tingxiao, the sparkling golden prince? Lu Tingxiao carefully sized up the woman on the hospital bed, scrutinizing her expression to see if it was real or fake. After a long time, he finally believed that she had not known about Little Treasure's identity and circumstances. He calmly said, "State your request." What request? Ningxi did not understand at all what he meant by those 3 words. "My brother means to thank you for saving Little Treasure, so he's asking if you have any requests." Lu Jingli looked at her as though to say, "You've hit the jackpot." Ningxi's brain started to turn and she said seriously, "Actually, you don't have to thank me. I saved Little Treasure, and in turn he also saved me. If it wasn't for Little Treasure going out to find someone, I would have still been trapped inside, so we're even." Although she had indeed saved the young master, how could she dare ask for a reward? The more money one had, the more likely they would become deluded into thinking others were out to get them, especially since this was the Lu family, one of the wealthiest and most prominent families around. It would be good enough they didn't think she had planned all this. Look at how wary Lu Tingxiao was when he watched her. To avoid potential problems, it was best to end all relations with them here. Ningxi thought her reply was faultless, but Lu Tingxiao still looked dissatisfied. Seeing this, she felt fearful. Did she say something wrong? Why was his face so scary? Brother, your expression is so scary. If I didn't know you were trying to repay her kindness, I would have thought you were here for revenge. Lu Jingli couldn't help saying, as he couldn't bear to see a beauty so frightened. He then turned to Ningxi to say, my brother doesn't like to owe favors, so please just ask for something. Don't be so courteous. Were there people who would actually force requests out of others? Ningxi curled her lips. I'm not being courteous, but really there's no need. I've only said the truth. If you don't believe me, you can check. No need, Lu Tingxiao said succinctly. His expression became impatient. Lu Jingli opened his mouth. We've already checked the security camera in the bar storeroom. Little Treasure ran in there himself, and as for you, the manager has already admitted to locking you in there, so don't worry. We don't suspect you of anything, and you did save Little Treasure, so just request something. Amazing, now we're back to where we started. Finally, Ningxi ran out of ideas, and under Lu Tingxiao's chilling gaze she gave in and said, how about, you give me money? Don't all rich people like to solve problems immediately with money? Lu Tingxiao should also be the type to think the same way. If she didn't ask for money, they might think she wanted one of the young masters instead. Right when she believed she had made the right request, Lu Tingxiao's expression turned even uglier. Ningxi was about to cry. Why did he have to be so taciturn? Can't you just say what you want to say? Would a few words kill you? Lu Jingli rubbed his nose as he translated. My brother believes that giving money insults the other person. Ningxi's heart was howling. No problem, just insult me. The Lu family was too unique. She really couldn't think of a reasonable request at the moment. It was at this point in their stalemate that Lu Tingxiao opened his mouth. Marry me. Ningxi froze for a second, then began coughing heavily, almost choking herself to death on her own saliva. Cough, cough, cough. What did you say? After finally succeeding in stopping her coughs, she immediately looked at Lu Jingli. Second master, please translate. But this time it was not just Ningxi who was stumped. Even Lu Jingli was also dazed. Brother, what did you mean? This time, I really cannot translate. Ningxi suddenly had a light bulb moment. She asked in a halting tone, is it because I saved your son that you've decided to repay me with your body? Lu Tingxiao inclined his head slightly and thought about it before he nodded. You could say that. Ningxi felt like she was dreaming as she stared at the cold, expressionless face on the man before her. She held her forehead weakly. Doctor, where's the doctor? I think I might have hit my head so hard that my brain is not working properly.
I'm hallucinating.
On the side, Lu Jingli's expression was guileless. I didn't hit my head, did my brain break down too? At this very moment, Ningxi simply could not accept the reality before her. She had saved Little Treasure, so now his father wanted to repay her with his body? If this was anyone else, that would have been fine. If it was someone just a bit handsome, then it could be considered a lucky romantic encounter. But this person was Lu Tingxiao. When it came to looks, she was not bad, but Lu Tingxiao was the kind of beauty even the most gorgeous of women might have never seen before. If he just fancied her, she wouldn't be so surprised. If Lu Tingxiao only took her looks into consideration and wanted to play around with her, that was understandable. But he had said, marry me, which was the most frightening of all. Most importantly, don't you like men? Ningxi blurted out. Bahaha. Lu Jingli was laughing so hard he fell over. Lu Tingxiao's face became black like the bottom of a pot, instantly filling the whole ward with a dark atmosphere. After a long time, Lu Jingli finally stopped laughing. If my brother likes men, where did Little Treasure come from? Surrogate pregnancy and artificial insemination? If my brother likes men, why would he offer you his body? To cover up his true sexual orientation? Ha 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 ha, brother. I really can't help you anymore. I also heard that the two of you are together. Ningxi's meek gaze shifted between the two brothers. Cough, cough, cough. Lu Jingli was so startled he choked. Bullshit. Those tastes are too heavy for me. Though this young master is indeed very handsome, I could be both a lady killer and a man killer. At this time, a stormy person slowly rose from his chair, his long legs striding over towards Ningxi. Jingli, take little treasure out. Brother, what are you going to do? Lu Tingxiao fixed his sleeves languidly. To prove my true sexual orientation to Miss Ning. Seeing his expression darken, with a gaze which looked as though he wanted to devour her whole, Ningxi was so scared, she fell off the bed. She hid behind little treasure, and almost wanted to hide under the bed. Mr. Lu, it has nothing to do with me, it's what other people are saying, I'm just repeating it. Also, you really don't have to thank me, but if you really want me to request something from you, then my request is that you don't ask me for a request again. I'm sorry, I have a really important audition right now, so I'll be leaving first. If fate shall have it, let us meet again then. Ningxi hastily finished speaking and was about to escape. But after having only taken a few steps, Lu Tingxiao said in a cold voice behind her, Did I allow you to leave? Ningxi was so scared her legs began to tremble. My life is over. A few seconds later, under Ningxi's ready-for-death gaze, Lu Tingxiao handed her a sheet of paper and a pen. Could I trouble Miss Ning to write a note for little treasure, to prevent him worrying when he wakes up? That's it? She had survived a disaster. Of course, no problem at all. I can even write 10,000 words and that wouldn't be a problem. Ningxi breathed heavily with relief and picked up the pen to begin writing. After she was done writing, she immediately ran off in a frenzy. Watching her back as she left, the man's gaze turned contemplative, as though watching prey that had already been collared. After Ningxi left, Lu Jingli sidled over to his brother and bounced up and down. Brother, am I dreaming? Do you really like Ningxi? After all these years, even a dull piece of metal like you can be carved into a fine needle. You've never once fancied a girl. Even I, your own brother, was beginning to wonder if you were bent. The moment the word bent came out, his older brother cut him off. Shut up.
And Lu Jingli choked.
His belly was filled with gossip, and not being able to ask for the truth was really killing him. It was currently rush hour, so there was a traffic jam. Although Ningxi had rushed over, by the time she reached the building hosting the auditions, she was already late. Chongli walked out of the building with a very happy Ningxuo, who was surrounded by people congratulating her. From a distance, seeing Ningxi drenched in sweat as she came running, Ningxuo looked at her with the exact same expression from 5 years ago. She looked at her as though she was looking at an ant. Ningxi watched Ningxuo get into her van and immediately depart. However, Ningxi did not leave, and instead rushed into the building. It was still not too late. About halfway to her intended destination, she ran into a group of people who were chatting happily. They were the casting judges for the drama, The World. I'm sorry I'm late.
Ningxi povet tepli.
Noticing Ningxi unexpectedly blocking their path, a few of the judges began to frown, expressing their displeasure. Was there anyone who liked tardy people? The assistant director grimaced. The auditions are already over. What's the point in rushing over now? Youngsters are getting worse and worse these days. I'm not here to audition for the female lead.
Ningxi replied.
If you're not here to audition for the female lead, then what did you come here to audition for? The screenwriter asked curiously. I want to audition for the second female lead, Meng Chang'e. From what I know, the last time there were auditions for the second female lead, you still weren't able to find someone suitable. After she finished speaking, she lifted her head. The moment Ningxi lifted her head, there was a 5-second silence, and the unpleasant expressions cleared. They could only notice the girl's red lips and white teeth, her black hair falling down to her waist. She wore a red, collared dress that was very showy. However, it did not overshadow her beauty, but instead complemented her. She stood there quietly with an aura as deep as a forest, like she was a 1,000-year-old fox spirit, with bewitching eyes that could cause people to drown unwittingly in desire. She exuded a mature and seductive aura, yet seemed so innocent. Her eyes had a crystal-clear depth to them. "What's your name?" It wasn't until director Guo Qixing spoke that all the casting judges came back to their senses, as if from a beguiling dream.
Ningqi.
Director Guo shared glances with his assistant director, the producer, and the screenwriter before saying, "That sounds familiar. You're an artiste with Starlight Entertainment, correct? Go back and prepare, the role is yours. When we start filming, we'll contact you." "Thank you, director. I will work hard to prepare." Ningxi bowed her thanks. From the start, Ningxi's goal had been to become the second female lead. For this role, she had practiced for 3 months, working hard to understand Meng Changa's feelings and the impression she gave, in order to impress the judges with just one glance. Although she had endured a lot of hardships, it had been worth it. She had succeeded. After Ningxi left, Director Guo couldn't help but feel admiration. "We tried so hard to find an actress, but she found us instead. Even though this girl is signed with Starlight, she doesn't have enough work experience. And with such poor qualifications, I never once thought of her for the second female lead. Who knew in real life she would be so much more beautiful than in her photos?" The screenwriter Yiling Long couldn't resist saying, her most admirable qualities were her temperament and manners. Her gaze was absolutely perfect. Meng Changa was a domineering female general before she became the disastrous beauty that she is, and this girl perfectly captured this. She can be seductive without being vulgar, and can even maintain a sense of purity and detached intelligence. In the previous auditions for the role, all the actresses acted as though they were playing the queen of a brothel. I almost died of anger. Haha, don't be angry. Haven't you finally found your long-awaited Changa? At the same time, in the First People's Republic Hospital in B City, the VIP patient room which Little Treasure was staying in was in chaos. The kid was crouched atop the windowsill, his emotions extremely volatile. No matter what the doctors or nurses said, he wouldn't come down. Below Little Treasure, Lu Jingli tried to coax and calm him down, but the one being pleaded with didn't give in to his uncle's cajoling. Left with no choice, Lu Jingli could only make a call to the company to ask Lu Tingxiao to come back. "Brother, you came back. Your Little Treasure suddenly threw a tantrum. What happened?" Lu Tingxiao asked in a low voice. "I don't know what happened. When he woke up, he started trying to find someone. I thought maybe he was searching for Ningxi, so I told him that the pretty auntie had left. After saying that, he started going wild. Little Treasure really seems to like Ningxi. He wouldn't listen to anyone and became like this." This was the first time in a while that Little Treasure was this emotionally unstable. After hearing the whole story, Lu Tingxiao went to Little Treasure. The kid became alarmed and shrank back after noticing his approach. His eyes were reserved and cautious. He wouldn't even acknowledge his own father. Lu Tingxiao stopped 3 steps shy of Little Treasure and calmly said, "When your second uncle said auntie left, that's exactly what he meant. She is well physically, and only left the hospital to go home. She did not die and leave this world, not like your grandmother who died and never came back. Do you understand?" Lu Tingxiao could only be this patient and speak so much with his son. Lu Jingli was speechless. "Are you kidding me? I only said 2 words, she left." And he imagined so much. Actually, it wasn't strange at all for Little Treasure to have an erratic state of mind, since he had been traumatized and frightened by seeing Ningxi fall. Dati. After hearing Lu Tingxiao's explanation, Little Treasure stopped screaming, and instead remained motionless on the windowsill. Lu Tingxiao then took out a note. "She wanted me to give this to you. Do you want to look at it?" Little Treasure paused, and like someone flicking on a switch, he raised his head and spread his arms, indicating for Lu Tingxiao to pick him up. Lu Jingli. All the doctors and nurses present. Everyone had worked so hard to the point of near collapse. Yet Lu Tingxiao had handled the situation with a single note? Before, when Lu Tingxiao had asked Ning Shi to write a note, Lu Jingli had felt his brother's action was meaningless. However, he was now impressed. Lu Tingxiao picked up his son and sat down on the sofa before he handed the note to him. Little Treasure impatiently took the note. He had already long learned how to read and write. "Darling, thanks for saving me. You're amazing." Seeing the words on the note and the little drawing of a heart on the back, his eyes glittered. His face flushed red and he couldn't help but smile, puffing his cheeks up. His face was undeniably adorable. Lu Jingli looked like he had seen a ghost. "Bullshit, am I going blind, brother?" Our Little Treasure actually smiled. I can't remember how long it has been since he last smiled. What did Ning Shi write in that note? Lu Jingli tried to take a peek, but Little Treasure hid the note away like it was treasure. But Lu Jingli had already seen it. It was just a simple message, and yet it could bring such happiness to Little Treasure? This Ning Shi was really not simple. Lu Tingxiao did not say anything, and only looked at his son with a gentle gaze. Now that Little Treasure was awake, Lu Tingxiao brought him home after canceling all his business matters just so he could accompany his son. Late at night, at the Platinum Residence number 8. In a large, cold and cheerless living room, two people, one big and one small, sat at a dining table facing each other, their expressions just as cold. Lu Tingxiao. "Eat." Little Treasure wouldn't listen. Lu Tingxiao. "I'm saying it one last time." Little Treasure remained unmoved. Lu Tingxiao. "Do you think by refusing to eat, you can successfully threaten me?" Little Treasure, like an old monk sitting in meditation, was completely immersed in his own little world, hardly reacting to anything from outside. The father and son pair continued to face off against each other. 1 hour later, Lu Tingxiao dialed his brother Lu Jingli's number. "Send Ning Shi's address to me." In the end, starvation proved to really work. Lu Jingli was efficient and immediately sent Ning Shi's address to his brother's cell phone, followed by a bunch of questions trying to satisfy his gossipy nature, which Lu Tingxiao of course ignored. This time, without Lu Tingxiao even saying a word, Little Treasure immediately followed suit after noticing his father pick up a coat and his car keys. Lu Tingxiao glanced down at his son walking next to him, and had no choice but to pick him up in his arms. Just this once. After Ning Shi returned from the audition, she freshened up before heading out to the supermarket to buy hot pot ingredients, some dishes, and beer. After experiencing such an ordeal, she had to have a hot pot celebration at home. A single person having hot pot by herself was really the ultimate level of loneliness. However, she had always been by herself, so she was used to it. Right after she had started heating up the pot and finished preparing the dishes, the doorbell rang. Who could possibly visit at this hour? Ning Shi opened the door curiously and was shocked. On her doorstep stood Lu Tingxiao in a neat suit under a large black coat. In his arms he carried Little Treasure, who was holding a colorful fruits basket. This was an odd pairing? "Mr. Lu." Ning Shi felt so frightened. "Why did you come here?" "It's quite late." "Is something the matter?" "To check on your health," Lu Tingxiao replied curtly. "Check on my health?" Personally coming over to her place late at night, bringing Little Treasure with him? She had only been hurt slightly, she could still run and jump around. "Ah, Mr. Lu, you're too kind. Please come in. I apologize since my home is a little messy." Ning Shi couldn't process the situation fast enough. She felt extremely flustered as she invited them in and then hurriedly tidied up what she could, shoving magazines under the sofa and her scattered clothes under the bed. "Sit wherever you like. Would you like anything to drink? Will tea and milk do?" She tried to guess what Lu Tingxiao would want, but he was too much of a mystery for her to figure out. "That's fine." Lu Tingxiao nodded his head, his expression making him seem like a soldier reporting to his superiors. Ningxi boiled some water for Lu Tingxiao's tea and poured a glass of milk for little treasure. Lu Tingxiao's long and lanky figure made him appear a bit squished on the couch with little treasure beside him. Not only did the father and son pair have cool, handsome features, even their expressions appeared the same. They were both expressionless and wouldn't speak, and created the same cold, silent atmosphere. When Ningxi saw this, she wanted to cry but had no tears. Really, what did these two come here for? At this moment, the pot started to wheeze, and an enticing spicy smell filled the air. To break the silence, Ningxi casually asked, "Have you two eaten dinner yet? I prepared a hot pot. Would you like to eat together?" Lu Tingxiao. Okay. Little treasure nodded his head. She simply asked out of politeness, what were they implying by agreeing so readily? One was a big CEO and the other was a young master. What treasures and delicacies had they not tried? And yet they would run over to her place to eat a commoner's spicy hot pot with her. Ningxi couldn't bear to bring out the food, but since she had already offered, she could only be thick-skinned by leading them to the table and putting out another 2 sets of chopsticks and bowls. The soup base I bought is pretty spicy. Can you handle spicy food? Ningxi asked restlessly. Lu Tingxiao. That's fine. Little treasure nodded again. K. Ningxi brought the prepared ingredients over. Dati. Lu Tingxiao didn't eat much and for the most part, he cooked vegetables for them. However, little treasure loved spicy food as much as she did, and the two of them couldn't stop eating once they tasted the spiciness in their mouths. After a while, Ningxi felt a little worried. Isn't it bad if children eat too much spicy food? If something happened to the little prince, she wouldn't be able to bear the responsibility. He's not that weak, Lu Tingxiao replied. Hearing this, Ningxi didn't say anything else. How was the audition? The silent and cold machine Lu Tingxiao had finally taken the initiative to speak first. Ningxi was shocked but recovered quickly and replied, "It was successful. That's why I prepared this hot pot celebration tonight." Lu Tingxiao raised his cup. Congratulations. Who knew the first one to congratulate her would be Lu Tingxiao? Ningxi smiled genuinely and lightly clanked her beer against his cup. Thanks. The moment she smiled, Lu Tingxiao felt blinded. After Ningxi said her thanks, she looked at little treasure. This is also thanks to little treasure. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to rush over for my audition. Come darling, let's have a drink too. Little treasure looked at his glass of milk and then looked at Ningxi and his father's beers. He felt unwilling, but ultimately, he clinked his cup against Ningxi's beer and chugged all his milk. Ningxi found his serious demeanor amusing. Did he know about drinking away his sorrows like adults? Halfway through dinner, Lu Tingxiao went to the patio to receive an incoming call. Ningxi nudged little treasure and handed her beer to him. Are you curious about the taste? Quick, while your father isn't here, have a little bit. But only one sip. Little treasure's eyes lit up like stars in the sky, and he lowered his head to drink a bit. Although the taste wasn't good, he was extremely happy nonetheless. After Lu Tingxiao finished his call and came back, Ningxi was sitting properly and pretending nothing had happened. Little treasure was even more professional, slowly drinking his milk. Nothing out of the ordinary. Lu Tingxiao looked as though he hadn't noticed anything, but a brief warmth flickered in his eyes. The three of them had pretty good appetites. Ningxi had bought a lot of groceries, but they still managed to finish everything. Ningxi saw the time and realized it was getting pretty late. Just as she thought about whether or not they should head back soon, lightning flashed outside the window, followed by loud booming sounds of thunder. It looked like the onset of a heavy storm. I watched the Weather Channel today, and they announced that tonight there was going to be a storm followed by a typhoon. Ningxi felt a headache coming on as she looked at the rain outside her window. Little treasure looked at Ningxi, as did Lu Tingxiao. Finally, after being stared at by the father and son pair for a while, she said, "It's late. The weather isn't looking good, so if Mr. Lu were to bring little treasure home, it might be dangerous. How about you two stay the night here with me? She had said this out of courtesy, and she felt that Lu Tingxiao would definitely not agree to it. In the end, Lu Tingxiao. All right. Little treasure nodded his little head repeatedly. What, he agreed again. Lu Tingxiao is too unreserved. Why did she feel as though they both had been waiting for her to make the offer? She was about to go crazy. In the end, Lu Tingxiao and little treasure would stay the night. The residence her company had given her was not big. It only had a bedroom and a living room. Deciding where the three of them would sleep was going to be a problem. Tonight, I'll sleep in the living room. Mr. Lu, you and little treasure can sleep in my bedroom. I'm going to go change the bed sheets first. No need, I'll sleep in the living room. You can sleep with little treasure in the bedroom. Lu Tingxiao's tone allowed no further discussion. Ningxi felt that she had sinned. Not only did she let the big so eat a cheap hot pot, she was making him sleep in the living room. If it had only been Lu Tingxiao without his son tonight, even if it was hailing, she wouldn't have allowed him to stay, since a single man and a single woman under one roof would only be trouble, especially after what Lu Tingxiao had said to her during the day. But she had no choice, and there was also little treasure. For Lu Tingxiao to bring his son home in such bad weather would be really dangerous. With little treasure here, the situation couldn't be so bad, right? Ningxi could only accept her fate. I'll go see if I can find some clothes for you both, so that you can wash and change. After rummaging through her closet, she really did find some. Ningxi had some props from one of her part-time jobs, one of which was a pair of Pikachu costume pajamas for children. She had casually packed it away, but now it was perfect for little treasure to wear. Finding clothes for Lu Tingxiao was even easier since her younger brother had left some of his clothes at her place. After reuniting with her birth parents, Ningxi had felt guilty towards her adoptive parents. She couldn't bring herself to face them properly, and so she slowly lost touch with them, only keeping in touch with her brother, Tang Luo. After finding all the clothes, Ningxi also found a blanket and pillow for Lu Tingxiao. The sofa in the living room wasn't big enough, and could not accommodate Lu Tingxiao's long legs, so she could only add a chair to extend the length. Little treasure was really good at not letting others worry about him, as he had already showered by himself, put on the pajamas and climbed into bed. After Ningxi finished showering, she put on some conservative sleepwear and confirmed she wasn't revealing any inappropriate parts of her body. Then, Mr. Lu, I'm going to bed now. If you need anything, just call for me. All right. Seeing a Ningxi who had just showered, Lu Tingxiao was disoriented for a moment. Soon after, his gaze became focused, and his vision was filled with only her. Her hair was tied into a simple bun, and she was wearing the most basic design for two-piece pajamas. She wasn't wearing any makeup, but her jade-like skin had a natural flush from the steam of her hot shower. Seeing that Ningxi had purposely dressed conservatively, there should be nothing inappropriate about her appearance. In Lu Tingxiao's heart, however, there was a problem, because he noticed that a certain part of his lower body was slowly rousing itself. Ningxi went into her bedroom, and suddenly noticing the little creature on her bed, she felt intrigued. Since last night, a lot of unexpected things had happened that were beyond her control. Quickly go to sleep. She knelt next to little treasure after turning off all the lights except for the small one by the side of the bed. Little treasure kept his eyes open, indicating his intention to stay awake. Ningxi started to have a headache. A bedtime story was required to lull a child like this to sleep. Ningxi helplessly threw up her hands. I don't know how to tell stories, so how about I sing you a song? Little treasure nodded his head, his face expectant. And so, Ningxi lightly patted little treasure's back and began to sing softly. On a somewhat cold and warm autumn day, tranquilly by your side, quietly watching the flickering light dance. The wind carries a few red leaves. Stirred up hearts go on and on. between being half drunk and half awake. I laugh uncontrollably. Let me float like the snowflakes amongst the clouds, using my frigid coldness to kiss others lightly, bringing out waves of their emotions, leaving behind who knows how much love in the world, while welcoming fleeting life and its many changes. Ningxi stopped singing here because the next line was, doing joyous matters with your lover. How was this lyric appropriate for such a young child? Cough. Auntie won't sing the rest of this song, so I'll sing a different one for you. Little Treasure was very cooperative and nodded his head in agreement. Ningxi searched her brain for the safest, most appropriate song for a child. In a happy pond there was a little frog. It jumped and danced like a prince had possessed its body. With its handsome gaze, no other frog was more beautiful. Then one day it was awakened by a princess. I believe in miracles. I believe I will one day be your partner, la 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 la. After singing the frog song 3 times, she finally heard the sweet sounds of breathing by her side. Having a child is really not easy. She suddenly felt great admiration towards Lu Tingxiao as a single father. She didn't know who Little Treasure's mother was, but why did she give birth to him and not stay with Lu Tingxiao? Was it because her status was too low and the Lu family wouldn't accept her? Or had she and Lu Tingxiao quarreled over some unknown matter? While thinking of all these possibilities, Ningxi gradually succumbed to the dream realm. Halfway through the night, Ningxi was scared awake by a sound from the living room. Little Treasure slept heavily as Ningxi lightly got off the bed to find out what had happened. Opening her bedroom door, she saw Lu Tingxiao pouring himself a glass of water, one hand clutching his stomach and his face ghastly pale. Ningxi rushed over. Mr. Lu, are you all right? It's nothing. Do you have a stomachache? Lu Tingxiao was silent. Ningxi knew she had guessed right. Lu Tingxiao couldn't handle spicy food. But if he couldn't handle it, why had he still eaten it? Wait a second, I'll get you some medicine. Luckily, her house was well stocked with medical supplies. Ningxi hurriedly brought over the stomach medication. You have to eat both pills. Thanks. Lu Tingxiao took the caplets from her palm, the coolness of his skin lightly grazing hers and giving her a shock which engraved itself into her heart. It was currently very late into the night, and with a beauty standing before her in such a difficult, dangerous situation, it was very easy to light a fire. Ningxi silently recited math equations in her head to calm her heart. As she watched Lu Tingxiao take his medicine, she felt it wouldn't be appropriate to just leave, and decided to accompany him for a while. Is it better now? Do we need to go to the hospital? I'm sorry, I didn't know you couldn't eat spicy food. Originally, she was worried about Little Treasure eating too much spicy food. But in the end, Little Treasure was fine but Lu Tingxiao was not. What kind of situation was this? It's no big deal. Both of them didn't say anything for a while before Lu Tingxiao finally opened his mouth. Tonight we came to bother you because Little Treasure wanted to see you. Ningxi felt surprised. Little Treasure wanted to see me. Since you saved him after the scare he received in the bar storeroom, Little Treasure is now very reliant on you, Lu Tingxiao explained. Ningxi realized that if Little Treasure was nearby or whenever the topic of Little Treasure came up, Lu Tingxiao's unfathomable cold demeanor would soften. He was not as frightening as he had been at the hospital during the day. So it was like this. Ningxi nodded her head. The atmosphere created from being up this late at night tended to make people lower their guards and confess their worries. So Ningxi asked a question she'd been thinking about a lot. That, if I may boldly ask, does Little Treasure not know how to speak? She had never heard Little Treasure utter a single word. The little guy only knew how to nod or shake his head. It's not that he doesn't know how, he just doesn't want to speak, Lu Tingxiao replied. So it's a psychological issue? Ningxi furrowed her brow. Yes. Lu Tingxiao didn't intend to hide anything. It was almost as she had guessed. As for the issue of what had happened to trigger the child's trauma like this, Ningxi dared not ask further about such a secret.
Miss Ning?
Lu Tingxiao suddenly fixed his attention on her. His gaze was cold, yet it gave her a scorching hot feeling which excited and exhausted her. Yes. Ningxi froze under his gaze. Have we met somewhere before? Lu Tingxiao asked. If anyone else had asked this question, Ningxi would assume that the other person was hitting on her using a completely worn-out pickup line. But the person speaking was Lu Tingxiao. Also, there was an entirely serious and honest expression in his eyes. I don't think we have. If I had seen a person like you before, Mr. Lu, it's impossible that I would have no recollection of it whatsoever. Is there a problem? Ningxi's tone was firm. Even if she was the eldest miss of the Ning family, there was absolutely no possibility of having met Lu Tingxiao, who was of a higher and different class. It's nothing. Lu Tingxiao directed his gaze, dark as the night outside, towards the window. He seemed forlorn. If this kind of tete-a-tete continued, the atmosphere would not be good. Mr. Lu, if you're all right now, I'm going to head back to bed, Ningxi said carefully. Lu Tingxiao saw through her and waved his hand.
No rush.
Sit.
No rush.
She was really rushed, okay. With a face like she was about to cry, Ningxi sat down obediently like a student in class. Lu Tingxiao rested his head in one hand. Are you that scared of me? A late-night Lu Tingxiao was much more unreserved than the daytime Lu Tingxiao, so he was even more dangerous. Ningxi shook her head like a rattle, but then nodded her head. You're a king. Who wouldn't be afraid of you? Lu Tingxiao swirled the water in his glass and said faintly, So because other people are afraid of me, you are afraid of me? Then all the other women want to marry me, but why don't you? This question nearly scared Ningxi into falling off her chair. She thought she had already dodged this bullet during the day, but she was just too naive. This question made her feel like 1,000 knives were directed at her. How was she supposed to answer it? Ningxi raised a shaking hand. Before I answer this question, can I ask a question first? Lu Tingxiao nodded. Sure. Why me? Is it because little treasure is reliant on me? I think this is only temporary. Wait until his emotions settle down and it'll be fine. Even if he is always going to be like this, you don't need to force yourself. Ningxi earnestly advised and persuaded. Lu Tingxiao lowered the glass in his hand and lifted his eyes to meet hers. Miss Ning, I believe that I explained very clearly in the beginning. Because you saved little treasure, I decided that I would repay you with my body. This kind of explanation is so weird it blinds me. There's no way I could accept this, alright? Ningxi held in her heart. Ningxi felt that she couldn't possibly get through to him if they persisted in this vein. So she could only put on an apologetic face and say, Mr. Lu, I really appreciate your intention, but I'm not a person who wants to get married, so... Lu Tingxiao furrowed his brow. So you only want to sleep with me? And you don't want to marry me? That's right, pa. No. I don't mean it like that. Ningxi was ready to just kneel before him. Can you not say such horrifying things? How regretful. I only accept sexual relationships with marriage as a prerequisite. Who would believe that? Ningxi could not help saying, Didn't you have a child outside of marriage? Lu Tingxiao looked out the window with a slightly absent-minded expression. Little treasure was an accident. Even I don't know who the mother is. Why did this sound so bad? Is it because you mind that I have a son? Lu Tingxiao abruptly asked.
Impossible.
Like Lu Tingxiao had said, if you cut open the brain of every woman who lived in the city, you would know they all wanted to be Little Treasure's stepmother. How could she mind such a thing? Then why? Seeing his expression, she knew that Lu Tingxiao would not let her go until she answered the question. Ningxi raised her head and let out a deep breath. Mr. Lu, marriage isn't a game. Whether it's to repay me or for any other reason, we should at least get to know each other. Do you know what kind of person I am? Do you know my past? The one I want to marry is the present you. Your past has nothing to do with me. Of course this would be Lu Tingxiao's answer. It was as tyrannical and overbearing as it could possibly be. Ningxi's expression turned frosty. Except to me, my past is a part of me. I can't cut out that part of me to marry you. Mr. Lu, there is no point in being together with someone who follows different principles. I sincerely advise that you take back your ridiculous offer. New dot. Her statement was followed by a cold silence. Right when Ningxi thought the other party was so furious from shame he was about to fly into a rage, Lu Tingxiao opened his mouth and calmly said, I understand. Ningxi relaxed and replied, I'm going to bed then. Good night. Good night. The man stared at her seemingly fragile silhouette, his gaze unfathomable like the ocean. The only thing unchanged was the boiling heat at the bottom of the sea. The next morning, Ningxi was awakened by a low male voice coming from the living room. Hearing footsteps behind him, Lu Tingxiao lowered his phone and asked in a gentle tone, Did I wake you? Ningxi stared at the man in front of her, her eyes wide like copper bells. Lu Tingxiao wasn't wearing a shirt, so when she opened the door, the first thing she saw was his bare skin. The impact was too much. Ni. She rubbed her nose. Thankfully, she hadn't embarrassed herself. Lu Tingxiao didn't seem to have noticed her strange behavior, and calmly picked his shirt up from the sofa. As he buttoned it on, he said, There's an emergency at work, I have to go. I'll have to trouble you to go wake little treasure up. Oh, okay. Ningxi nodded and quickly went to do so, but she didn't have to. When she turned around, she saw a soft and cute little Pikachu standing in the doorway. His eyes were staring intently at his father, Lu Tingxiao, and he appeared displeased. Little treasure, go change your clothes. Lu Tingxiao ordered this son as he put on his coat. The reply he received was the loud bang of the bedroom door being slammed shut. Ever so merciless. Lu Tingxiao. Ningxi. Lu Tingxiao went to turn the doorknob, but it was locked. He looked at Ningxi. Do you have the key? Ningxi awkwardly shook her head. I do have one, but the key is also inside the room. Lu Tingxiao pinched the skin between his eyebrows and said in a cold, unfathomable tone, I'll give you 3 minutes. If you don't come out, don't think you'll ever get to come here again. 3 minutes later, there was still no sound or motion behind the door. Get out here. If you're waiting for me to force you out, I won't be as nice as I am right now. There was still no movement. That little treasure was really not giving his father any face. Watching from the sidelines, Ningxi wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. I have work later, but it's no big deal if little treasure stays to play for a while. Lu Tingxiao's expression was irritated and displeased as he took out his phone to make a call. Ningxi took a sneaky peek and saw that he was calling a psychiatrist. She was at a loss for words. Wasn't it too extreme to call a psychiatrist for such a small matter like this? Ningxi coughed as she urged, How about letting me try? Lu Tingxiao hesitated slightly before nodding. Ningxi pressed against the door and used a gentle, soothing voice. Little treasure, Auntie has to go to work, so I can't take care of you. Follow your father home first, okay? There was still no sound from inside. How about this, we can exchange phone numbers so we can instantly contact each other. We can even video chat. Sounds of footsteps approached the other side of the door. If Auntie is late, the director will yell at me. Our director is really mean. Auntie is so pitiful, woo. The door unlocked with a catchy sound and then opened. Lu Tingxiao, who was already prepared to fight a long war, felt that he was dreaming. He stared at the woman standing beside him with bewilderment. With just 3 statements, she had managed to coax little treasure into obediently coming out by himself. If only he had known her when little treasure had locked himself in the attic the last time this happened. His entire family of 4, all the butlers and servants, the psychiatrist, even a negotiation expert who had been hired as a last resort, had all been useless despite spending an entire afternoon trying to talk him out of the attic. In the end, they broke the door down and the little kid ignored everyone for a whole month. Ningxi, of course, didn't know about any of this, and only thought the child was really obedient despite his tragic air. She picked little treasure up. Seeing his depressed expression, she was unwilling to scold him and praised him instead. Little treasure is so obedient. Thanks, darling. Little treasure appeared happier with the praise, and he silently gave her a note. On the paper there was a string of numbers. Ningxi accepted the note. Ah, is this your phone number? All right, I'll save it. And when I'm not busy, I will definitely give you a call. Lu Tingxiao felt it a bit strange. Little treasure didn't have a cell phone, so what phone number did he give her? Using his height to his advantage, he looked at the note. That was his phone number. You really are my son. Starlight Entertainment. Inside the office, a completely flustered and exasperated Chongli exclaimed. Ningxi auditioned and was cast as the second female lead. Second female lead? Ning Xuelua creased her forehead at the information. Wasn't she playing some random role in an unknown movie? When did she have time to audition for the second female lead? I originally thought it was strange too, but after asking around, I found out it was after the auditions for the first female lead ended. The casting judges were leaving, and it just so happened that they ran into Ningxi. The moment they saw her, they immediately decided she fit the role of the second female lead. They only gave her one glance and it was decided like that. No wonder you feel threatened by her. What a schemer she is. Who knows who she had to seduce to get this role? There were some things Chongli didn't dare say. Ningxi's looks were her best weapon. The fact that the casting judges decided on her with just one glance was not strange at all. She thought back to when she had first signed Ningxi as an artiste. She had been prepared to nurture her, but out of nowhere came Ning Xuelu. On one hand, a new artiste with no power or backing. On the other hand, an already famous celebrity with a strong and powerful family background. Anyone would know how to choose. The entertainment industry was not a place where you could survive on beauty alone. Ning Xuelua was displeased. Even if she's not the first female lead, this is still a huge production. Chongli could hear in her tone that she did not want Ningxi to be cast in this role. She felt conflicted. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to remove her. Our company invested a lot of money into this drama, and the boss is really happy after being able to secure the first and second female leads. If there was someone from our company who could replace her, that would be fine. However, everyone else has already failed the auditions, so there's no good reason to remove her. Who knew what Ning Xuelua was thinking? But she suddenly calmed down and began filing her nails. She laughed. Never mind. Since she wants to play the role of a fox demon, then let her. Playing a seductress who brings disaster really suits her. Ningxi soon received a phone call from Chongli notifying her that her casting in The World as the second female lead was confirmed. She was also told to properly prepare for the part. In the movie The World, the first female lead was righteous, brilliant, and courageous, and would help the male protagonist ascend the throne. Meanwhile, the second female lead brought calamity to the country and the people. She was treacherous and cunning and was spurned by all. To everyone's satisfaction, she would ultimately meet her end with the first female lead making her jump off a cliff. Because it was such a character, it was unsurprising that Ning Xuelua wasn't bothered to interfere with the casting. Although Ningxi had landed the role of second female lead, she still needed to complete her existing work. Today she still had a production she needed to run to. Her role was a husband-stealing vixen, and she only needed to film the last 5 minutes. Under the blistering sun, she would be surrounded by angry people and beaten violently for 5 minutes. However, the reality of film was that these 5 minutes actually took a little over 2 hours to complete, because the group of actors was inexperienced. Their expressions were not in sync, so she had to be hit repeatedly. Returning home, Ningxi turned on the television as she lay on the sofa, completely exhausted. A news broadcast was on, and then a familiar person appeared on the screen. Such flourishing beauty, such broad shoulders, a slim butt and long legs, such height and such an ascetic temperament. Who else could it be but Little Treasure's father, Lu Tingxiao? Lu Tingxiao appeared to be in the middle of a signing ceremony and was shaking hands with several foreigners. The host sounded very enthusiastic when introducing the successful collaboration between Lu Corporation and the Italian DR brand. Entering the European market would possibly double the company's stock value. After watching for a while, Ningxi finally realized that she had forgotten to give Little Treasure a call. At the Platinum Palace, the two elders of the Lu family had returned from overseas, and the family of 5 were having dinner together. The business deal the Lu Corporation had pursued for 3 years was finally sealed, making the old master very happy. He praised Lu Tingxiao very highly. Even Lu Jingli got some compliments. After he was finished, however, he brought up the most crucial issue, that while work was important, his precious grandson took even more priority. Master Lu Tingxiao, work is very important, but you can't just neglect Little Treasure. Since you will be less busy in the upcoming days, spend more time with Little Treasure, Madam Lu. But if you're really busy, then find someone to help you take care of him. Little Treasure is already so big. You should really consider finding someone, Master Lu. Your mother is right. Lu Jingli gave his brother a meaningful glance. Look, our parents are starting again. Lu Tingxiao focused on eating dinner, not uttering a single word. Little Treasure held his father's cell phone, not moving at all. Madame Lu watched the father and son pair, who were both stiff like wood. It really broke her heart. Tingxiao, did you hear what I said? And what's going on with Little Treasure? He hasn't eaten a grain of rice all night. My baby darling is only staring at the cell phone. Lu Jingli was still chewing on the sweet and sour ribs, so when he spoke it was unclear. Little Treasure is waiting for the pretty auntie's phone call. Madame Lu was confused. What pretty auntie? Lu Jingli waved his hand. Dad and Mom, you don't have to worry. My older brother already found someone he likes. Madame Lu was shocked but still disbelieving. Are you telling the truth? Old two, don't lie to us. Master Lu's expression was serious as he put down his chopsticks to observe Lu Jingli. Why would I lie? This is the truth. If you don't believe me, you can ask my older brother, Lu Jingli said while looking at his brother. Tingxiao, is what Jingli said true? Master Lu asked gruffly. Tingxiao, why don't you say something? Madame Lu urged. Lu Tingxiao. Yes. Madame Lu felt as though she was going to die of impatience, like she had waited half a day to only hear a single yes. Her stomach was full of anger. You brat, why can't you say more than one word? Talking to you is such a waste of effort. Lu Tingxiao said. Is that so? Great, so he could say more than one word. Madame Lu still wasn't reassured and asked suspiciously, Tingxiao, the person that you like, is it a he or she? Lu Tingxiao's face went black, his teeth nearly gnashing together, and he spat out, female. Lu Jingli laughed so hard he nearly fell off the chair. Of course it's a woman, and a very beautiful one. Our Little Treasure likes her so much that he's even waiting for her call. When Madame Lu heard this, she was ecstatic. The ancestors have blessed us. The ancestors have blessed us. Tingxiao, which family's young miss is this? How old is she? Where did she come from? What does she do? How big is her household? Why didn't you tell us sooner? Lu Jingli hurriedly cut her off. Mom, calm down. Nothing has even happened between them yet. We didn't tell you because we were afraid you would intervene and ruin everything. If they found out who Ningxi was, about her less than stellar reputation and the fact that she was currently working in the entertainment industry, their plans would surely go sour. At this time, Master Lu said, since Tingxiao likes this person, then she must be decent. Don't worry so much. What don't worry? Aren't you worried yourself? Who is it that worries so much he can't sleep at night and has to go out to the porch to smoke? Madame Lu mercilessly exposed her own husband. But after hearing what her husband had to say, she relaxed a lot. Tingxiao's standard is so high, the girl he likes must be pretty good. Even Little Treasure likes her. After everyone quieted down, the cell phone Little Treasure had been holding all night suddenly rang. This was Lu Tingxiao's personal cell phone, so not many people knew the number. Lu Jingli rushed over to see. Indeed, it was Ningxi's phone number. Is that girl calling? Madame Lu excitedly asked, rushing over as though she was going to meet her daughter-in-law. Lu Jingli nodded his head and then helped Little Treasure answer the phone. Little Treasure didn't know how to use cell phones. Lu Tingxiao had bought him a cell phone before, but he hadn't liked to use it, and who knows where it went. At the same time, the entire table of people were focused completely on the cell phone. Lu Jingli was the most shameless, pressing against the side of the cell phone to eavesdrop. Ningxi had struggled for a long time about whether to call or not, but in the end she made the call. Due to the incident 5 years ago, she was actually not too fond of children, and even avoided getting close to them. It would only cause her to think of unhappy memories and to think of the child she had lost. That child had once carried her warm hopes, but also represented the dirtiest part of her past. For some unknown reason, Little Treasure didn't discomfort her at all. On the contrary, the more she saw him, the more she liked him, and couldn't help but want to be closer to him. It was really strange. Hello, hello? The call connected, but there was no sound. Ningxi knew that it had to be Little Treasure, and she laughed lightly. Is it Little Treasure? Sorry, Auntie just finished work and just remembered to call you. Little Treasure wasn't capable of replying, so Ningxi could only talk like she was talking to herself. With no proper topic of conversation, she had to find something to say. Darling, have you eaten yet? You're too skinny, so you have to eat a lot, okay? Children shouldn't be picky, only then will you grow quickly. Actually, being chubby would make you even more adorable. Although right now you are already cute enough. Oh right, I just saw on TV that your father successfully closed a big business deal. He's really amazing, so help me congratulate him. 10 minutes later, Little Treasure put down the cell phone and took out a tablet that had not been used in a long time. He quickly wrote something down. Congratulations. Even if Little Treasure could not speak, he was very fluent in Chinese and English. He felt, though, that Chinese was bothersome to write, so for the most part he would write in English. However, he had not written anything in a long time, because he had had no desire to communicate. The two elders were completely shocked. Lu Jingli had witnessed this before, so he was rather calm about it. Lu Tingxiao had secretly heard what Ningxi had said on the phone, so when he saw the word on the whiteboard, his usually frozen face displayed a rare smile as he rubbed his son's little head. Thanks. After Little Treasure had finished writing, he started to eat his dinner in a serious manner. He was even eating the carrots he hated most. The two elders remained in stunned silence. Their eldest son had smiled. Their good grandson had written a word. Their good grandson was taking the initiative to eat dinner. Their good grandson was even eating carrots. Madame Lu finally recovered from her incredulity and immediately asked, Jingli, what did the girl on the phone say to Little Treasure just now? Master Lu's face showed that he also wanted to know. Questioned by his parents, Lu Jingli slowly replied, Nothing much. She only told Little Treasure not to be so picky with his food, and to have Little Treasure pass on her congratulations to my elder brother. Madame Lu's face was filled with disbelief. That's it. Lu Jingli shrugged his shoulders. What else would there be? Master Lu's face was full of gratitude. One phone call from this girl can already do this much. The results are already even better than 1 year of working with the psychiatrist. It really is. Madame Lu was both surprised and delighted. This lady is really not bad. Tingxiao, work hard. Lu Tingxiao. Yes. Madame Lu didn't give her eldest son a second glance before turning to her youngest son. Old two, your brother is a piece of wood. He won't know how to woo girls, so you have to help him, do you understand? Now you realize how useful I am. Lu Jingli chortled. Relax, I will definitely use my lifetime of knowledge to help my brother. But we have to make a deal that you two cannot intervene. Parents are always the easiest way to ruin relationships. The two elders agreed. We understand, we were just asking. When the two elders left after dinner, Lu Jingli went to find his brother for a reward, like a dog wagging its tail. Brother, wasn't I great? Wasn't I great? His brother threw something small at him. Lu Jingli caught it with one hand. What plaything is this? Looking at it properly, his eyes widened. It was a car key. The key to the 100th anniversary Bugatti race car he had been eyeing for so long. The only one of its kind ever made. Oh, my beloved little darling. Lu Jingli hugged the car key and kissed it madly. Brother, I love you. Lu Tingxiao had never given in no matter how Lu Jingli had pestered his brother before. Who knew his brother would throw it right at him just for casually saying a few words in front of their parents? That Ningxi held a higher place in his brother's heart than he had expected. The more Lu Jingli thought about it, the more anxious he became. That big brother, are you sure it's Ningxi? You're not playing and you really want to get married. Married. Lu Tingxiao's voice was firm, leaving no room for doubt or any other possibility. Lu Jingli sighed. Since he had experience, he had to give some advice. Then let me remind you to prepare yourself. Chasing after a woman like this is like playing a video game. There are different levels. Easy mode, normal mode, difficult mode, and hell mode. And Ningxi is definitely hell mode. Women usually have weaknesses, but with Ningxi, you want to use money? Even with her looks, she's still doing so poorly in the industry, so she definitely isn't the type to accept a financial sponsor or shady deals. You want to use love? Take a look at the lovers she had when she was overseas. Her exes are everywhere in the entertainment industry, and each and every one of them is extraordinary. When I first saw the list, I was impressed, and I've never been impressed by something like this before. And if you want to get her pregnant, don't even bother to think that will work. She's completely focused on her career right now, and does not want children. Even if I try for her myself, it'd be an 80% chance of a game over for me. A newbie like you would just be sacrificing yourself to give her experience points. Lu Tingxiao looked coldly at him. 100%. Lu Jingli smirked. Okay, it would 100% be game over for me. Don't sweat the small stuff, alright? The point is, I bet that Ningxi is just like me, someone who never wants to get married or have kids. This kind of person is skeptical of relationships and love. Freedom is their life. If you want to play around, that's easy. If you want to get married, that's really difficult. That's only because you haven't met anyone you want to marry or have children with yet. Lu Tingxiao's usually frigid and cold face seemed gentle in the moonlight from the window. Lu Jingli counted how many words his brother had said with a disbelieving face. People who are in love really are different. Even someone with no experience is giving me lessons. But what you said makes sense. So now what? Do you need your beloved younger brother to help with anything? Lu Tingxiao gave him 2 curt words. No need. Lu Jingli was concerned. What do you mean no need? Wooing girls is different from doing business. Think about it carefully. Don't you really need a smart and handsome god-level girl-chasing coach? Lu Jingli was doing his best to promote himself when suddenly, the door to the study room opened with a creak. The 2 brothers turned their heads to look. Little Treasure was standing in the doorway. Surprise flashed in Lu Tingxiao's eyes. Little Treasure. Lu Jingli was also surprised. Little Treasure had actually left his bedroom at this hour?